Hello there, this is part 2 of my Shadowbringers solo series. I recommend watching my previous video, or at least watching the conclusion to see what can and can't be soloed, but if you can't be bothered to do that, here are the conclusions. What we'll be doing in this video is trying to solo all the Savage raids and Extreme Trials that I couldn't solo in the previous video. And just like tradition, we're going back to Stormblood to pay Zuzano a visit, who still can't be soloed. Amazing. The idea is to get him to just above 75%, as that's his phase push, and wait for him to be locked into a cast, and then burst him down before he even has a chance to phase. But he still just has way too much health, so maybe next patch, but I doubt it. I also tried O11S again because I failed to clear this in the last video, and I finally figured out something that I feel pretty stupid for not figuring out sooner. The ad phase is still annoying as it's RNG if your character will walk off the arena to their death or not, but for the big 4 fists, you can just camp in a corner and the first fist to hit you will be one of the 2 you're next to. That will always hit you in the opposite direction, I think. It happens twice, and maybe I just got lucky, but it's definitely doable. Let's actually move on to what you came here for, Shadowbringer content. We'll mix it up and start with the trials first. In our last video, we cleared Titania, Innocence, and Ruby Weapon Extreme, so that leaves a good few to reattempt. And we'll begin with Hades Extreme. Spoiler, it's not possible, but we got decently far. The first phase is rather trivial, just dodge the bad stuff. The ad phase is where things get complicated though. First we have to take out Nabrielus. Did I say that right? I don't know. Okay, I didn't look into that before I recorded this video. Oh well, either way, my gear really isn't a problem here, so I save my offensive cooldowns and just slowly chip away at its health. During this, a bunch of meteor towers spawn, and these shadows will tether to me and cast Dark too. So to survive this, I just popped all my mitigation and ignored the towers. The shadows then target me with Ancient Darkness and Ancient Water Free, which we have to invulnerability through, as it does 9999999 damage. Quake Free also scales damage with his health. The more health he has, the more damage it does, so it did a fair amount, but not enough to kill me. Then La Habrea and Igeiorum. Oh my god, again, I'm so sorry, I don't know. Either way, these 2 ads spawn, and they need to be tanked apart from each other, as they tether to each other and get a significant damage reduction buff. They also cast Fire and Blizzard Sphere, debuffing me with either a Fire or Blizzard brand. Fire brand means I can't do any damage to La Habrea, and Blizzard brand means I can't do any damage to the other ad. But it seemed to always be Firebrand in my experience, so I just started tanking the non-La Habrea ad, and to avoid them tethering together, I just saved all my burst for this ad, killing them before they even got a chance to tether. Then I lose my Firebrand, and all that leaves is La Habrea, who I can slowly chip down at. Shadows also spawn again during this phase and cast Dark Flame and Freeze. If we had the brand, these would do considerable damage, but we don't, so they barely do anything. Then we kill La Habrea and move on to the final ad, Ascian Prime. And this is where things get into the impossible territory, giving me multiple debuffs. The killer here being Beyond Death. With this debuff, you have to find a way to die to cleanse the debuff. Normally with other players, they would have donut AoEs that the Beyond Death players can stand in to cleanse themselves. But solo, I don't have other players. So this is where I called Hades for now. Our next fight was frustrating, which is Emerald Weapon, and really, it's only a problem for the very first mechanic. The rest is rather trivial when soloing, dodge some AoEs and try not to get knocked into the wall. But this first mechanic, Aether Plasm Production, was probably one of the biggest hurdles I've ever had to get past on this game. It spawns 8 orbs, and these orbs all need to be taken, and we need to alternate colours. They also tether to each other, so if we take an orb, the other orb it was tethered to will shortly blow up and kill us. To handle this, we start east, take the first orb, sprint to the other side, to the other orb, and then go either left or right depending on what orb we just took. Then take these 3 orbs and the other 3. It's hard because we have to not only pop every single defensive cooldown that we have, but we also need to be patient when taking the set of 3 orbs to give our debuff time to run out. So it's a mix of having to not be too fast, but also not too slow. Either way, I eventually got past it and the rest was history. But I don't recommend soloing this because holy shit was that annoying. Next up is Diamond Weapon, and I almost got this down in the last video, but I didn't bother with echo stacking. But I'm happy to announce that's no longer needed, and Diamond Weapon can be comfortably soloed without echo stacking. You just need to not get knocked off the arena during his second phase, which admittedly got me a few times, but it's not very hard to learn after seeing it a few times. And that's really it for the trials. I'm not bothering with the Warrior Light as you need tank limit break free, like it's literally hard coded into the fight. You can't just over mitigate or over gear like you can with Bahamut and Alexander's fights, which quote unquote need tank limit break free, but you can just again over gear or over mitigate these. So trying Warrior of Light is just a pointless endeavor. And Moria Misery isn't even worth doing either, as you need at least 2 people to get past the active time maneuver. So let's move on to the rates. We'll start with Eden's Gate E1S, which is still impossible. You need an invulnerability to survive these orbs, and then you need another invulnerability after the ad phase for Vice and Virtue, which is just not possible. Maybe with more gear we can kill the boss before this cast, but as of now it's just impossible. Next up it's E3S, and I actually think this is possible. It's just a matter of someone getting really good crit RNG, as you have to kill Leviathan before Splashing Waters goes off. I got him to 8.1% here, and that was with using a potion before zoning into the instance to gain an extra potion. So I challenged someone to get him down before my next video in 7.2. If you manage it, I'll get you a Makoti GF or something. I don't know, man. Then we had the final fight in Eden's Gate, E4S's Titan, and we finally got him down. This was actually doable when Dawn Trail first came out with potion smuggling, but now it's easier than ever. Well, kinda. You still have to play Dark Knight and get your shadow to free you from the jail, and you still have to get lucky and hope Titan doesn't hit the platform you're on for the second hit. I like to put my jail at the very front here so my shadow's Abyssal Drain hits both Titan and the jail, then his Shadowbringer and Disesteem also hit my jail, and it's pretty free from here. I just had to make smart usage of my mitigation, and I did panic a lot near the end with my LD and stuff, but we did get it down. Moving on, we have Eden's Verse E5S's Ramu, which is still impossible. We have to kill him before Judgment Faults, because this mechanic requires 8 players. We got him to 50%, so maybe at the end of the expansion, who knows? I'll keep trying every Savage patch. Next we have E6S, and oh boy, this fight probably took me like 2 hours to figure out how to solo, but we did actually manage to get it down with potion smuggling and seeing the enraged Caspar. I actually thought I was one of the first to get this down, but then I saw a paladin and a warrior did it before me, but I think I might be the first Dark Knight, and I can see why, because this kind of sucked as a Dark Knight. I had to constantly use the Blackest Night just to mitigate vulnerability stacks, otherwise I'd just straight up die. Because this fight is a constant stun lock after stun lock. But yeah, other than having to constantly mitigate damage, it's not like the mechanics were hard, it was just a process of figuring out a decent defensive cooldown rotation that could see me through to the end of the fight. Anyway, next up is E7S, and this fight is pretty straightforward until the ad phase. Sadly, these ads get a tether and a massive damage reduction, so we'd have to kill an ad before they get a chance to tether, and with current damage, it just isn't possible. I even saved my potion and all of my offensive cooldowns and managed to get it to 46% before they tethered. So it's just a matter of time before this is doable. I didn't even bother with E8S, by the way. It's simply impossible due to the light party mechanic, which you can check in my other video. Finally, we have Eden's Promise, starting with E9S, which is now very much doable, and the DPS check really wasn't an issue anymore, and neither are the mechanics. Nothing crazy complicated that we didn't pick up in a few pulls. Unfortunately, that is where the success stops, because E10S just isn't very friendly at the moment. Again, the mechanics themselves are relatively simple, it's just the mitigation checks, with the first problem being Umbra Smash into either Shadow's Edge or Darkness Unleashed. Shadow's Edge can easily be mitigated. Darkness Unleashed just barely kills me with all my cooldowns up, so we have to use Invulnerability through it. The dual spell stack AoE after that does a lot too, and after that Shadowkeeper will do a few more mechanics, and then another Umbra Smash into either Shadow's Edge or Darkness Unleashed. If it's another Darkness Unleashed, then it's GG. If it's a Shadow's Edge, then we can keep going to our next hurdle, Umbral Orbs. Orbs. Why is it always orbs? Anyway, this spawns 4 sets of orbs around the arena that naturally all go to us and do a lot of damage. We can mitigate through these, but we need almost all of our mitigation to survive, and the boss does 2 sets of these, so we need Living Dead for a set. And for that, we need to get Shadow's Edge during the Umbra Smashes, and I honestly wasn't willing to lose my mind over this, so I just went next, but maybe someone has more success here. Either way, I'll come back to this with more gear, so it's actually easier to mitigate through, and I can reliably survive through Darkness Unleashed without having to use my invulnerability. Moving on, we have E11S, and I actually almost got him down. But a little backstory first. So I never actually did Eden's Promise on content. I took a break from the game at the time, so for me this was a learning experience. I did manage to learn all the mechanics through trial and error, and it wasn't anything crazy. Even the mitigation checks weren't hard here, except for the powder mark debuffing me with a physical vulnerability, which made his autos hit like a truck. But the real hurdle is near the end when he casts Prismatic Deception. This spawns 8 adds around the arena, with 3 doing Blasting Zone, a huge line AoE in front of them. Normally you'd have a player stand on a clock spot, and if their ad was idle, they'd stay still. If their ad raised their gunblade low, they'd be casting Blasting Zone, so that player would move forward to indicate that. But I'm solo, and I could only check a few ads before they disappeared. So I had to check a few and then gamble the safe spot, twice, as this happens 2 times. And I did actually manage it, and got him to 7.6% with my food running out and a few unnecessary damage downs. Still, I think this is actually doable, but I'm not willing to lose my mind over this when it should be 100% doable come 7.2. But just like E3S, I challenged someone to try and get this down, and I don't know, I'll get a cute Aura GF this time. Finally, we have E12S, and this isn't possible by the way, not yet at least. Again, I had to spend a little bit of time learning the mechanics here, but it was nothing crazy when soloing. The real hard part was the mitigation checks. Again, man, if anything this solo experience has made me think about is my defensive cooldowns better. But anyway, the first hurdle was Titan bombs. Although never killing me, I did have to cool down through the yellow markers as the bombs did some pretty significant damage, and for some reason the damage went through TBN, thanks Square Enix. Then the next hard hitting thing was Obliteration, which I did get away with just using TBN on, but it still hurt. Then this stack marker that I had to use LD on because I had no mitigation up yet, as they were still on cooldown from Titan. Then this ad spawn that spammed me with this beam 4 times that hurt a lot, so I had to use mitigation on that. Then Eden's Promise uses a tank buster on me, so I had to make sure I had mitigation for that too. And then the lions. Oh, the lions. I either need a lot of mitigation or an invulnerability, which I have none of. So yeah, this simply isn't possible yet. At least not to my knowledge. So yeah, let's conclude this little challenge, shall we? With our new data, we know that out of the trials, Titania, Innocence, Ruby, Emerald, and Diamond Weapon are all soloable, with Hades, Warrior Light, and Memoria Misra being impossible. As for the raids, E2S, E4S, E6S, and E9S are all possible, with E3S, E10S, and E11S up for debate, and E1S, E5S, E7S, E8S, and E12S being just impossible. And yeah, that's that. Definitely an improvement over when Dawn Trail first came out, and hopefully with more gear, more will become soloable, or easier to solo. It's definitely looking like it, and soloing to farm some glamours or mounts is a lot more viable now, but I still just recommend grabbing some buddies unless you're in for the challenge, which in that case, I wish you the best of luck on your endeavor. Anyways, that will do this video. If you'd like to support me further, then check out the link in the description below to come on Patreon. It helps a lot and you get to be one of these cool people in the credits. If you're not about that low, you can help me with a like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. With that said, thanks for watching, and goodbye.